There's a name that's already shaping the future of America, Kamala Harris. We're diving deep into why millions of voters are saying Kamala Harris in 2024. And let me tell you, the reasons are more inspiring, more powerful, and yes, some even a little unbelievable. Look, we've all had that one friend who panics when ordering takeout, right? Can't handle the pressure. Now imagine that, but with, running a country. Thankfully, Kamala Harris is the opposite of that friend. This is a woman who spent the past 4 years as vice president, side by side with President Biden. We're talking global pandemics, economic roller coasters, and enough international drama to make a telenovela blush. And through it all, Kamala has been the definition of cool under pressure. But it's not just about keeping the ship afloat, people. It's about steering it in the right direction. And let's be real, the last few years have thrown some serious curveballs at America. But through it all, Kamala Harris has been a rock, a voice of reason and steady leadership. From tackling the COVID-19 crisis head-on to championing policies that uplift working families, Kamala's track record speaks for itself. Let's talk about justice, folks. Not the kind you see in those cheesy courtroom dramas, but the real deal. The kind that impacts millions of Americans every single day. Kamala Harris has spent her entire career fighting for those who need it most. And trust me, this ain't some recent political pivot. This is who she is at her core. We're talking about criminal justice reform that actually addresses the systemic issues plaguing our nation. We're talking about standing shoulder to shoulder with the Black Lives Matter movement, demanding equality and an end to police brutality. But here's the thing about fighting for justice, folks. It ain't easy. It means taking on powerful interests, challenging the status quo, and never backing down, even when the going gets tough. She's been criticized, underestimated, and even demonized for daring to stand up for what's right. But through it all, she's never wavered in her commitment to creating a more just and equitable society for all Americans. Okay, let's talk about something that affects every single one of us: healthcare. And no, I'm not talking about those ridiculous medical bills that make you question if you accidentally booked a luxury stay at the hospital. I'm talking about access to affordable, quality healthcare for all Americans. Kamala Harris has been a vocal advocate for strengthening the Affordable Care Act and expanding access to Medicare. She understands that healthcare shouldn't be a privilege reserved for the wealthy few. It's a fundamental right that every American deserves. She doesn't back down from a fight, especially when it comes to protecting the health and well-being of everyday Americans. She's consistently supported policies that make healthcare more affordable, expand access to mental health services, and address the opioid epidemic that's ravaging communities across the country. Chapter 4. The Green New Deal and Beyond. Kamala's plan to save our planet. Alright folks, it's time to talk about the big green elephant in the room: climate change. And no, I'm not talking about your uncle who insists on keeping his house at a balmy 85 degrees in the middle of winter. I'm talking about the existential threat facing our planet. Now, some politicians like to bury their heads in the sand and pretend it's not happening. But not Kamala Harris. She understands the urgency of this crisis and has made it a cornerstone of her agenda. We're talking about bold action like supporting the Green New Deal and investing in clean energy jobs that can revitalize our economy while protecting our environment. Kamala Harris understands that climate change is a global problem that requires global solutions. Chapter 5. A Fair Shot. Kamala's fight for economic equality. Let's be real, folks. The American dream is feeling more and more like a distant memory for far too many people. The gap between the rich and the poor is wider than ever, and wages have stagnated while the cost of everything from healthcare to housing continues to skyrocket. Kamala Harris sees this economic injustice, and she's fighting tooth and nail to change it. She believes that everyone deserves a fair shot at success, not just those born into privilege. We're talking about bold economic policies like raising the minimum wage, expanding access to affordable housing, and providing tax breaks to working families, not just the wealthy few. Kamala understands that when we invest in working people, we all benefit. That's the future Kamala Harris is fighting for. Chapter 6. From Courtroom to Capitol Hill, Kamala's criminal justice expertise. Now let's talk about Kamala Harris's experience in a way that even those who binge-watch Law & Order can appreciate. Before she was a senator or vice president, she was a prosecutor. But not just any prosecutor, folks. She was the Attorney General of California, the most populous state in the nation. That means she's got more real-world experience in the criminal justice system than most politicians could ever dream of. She's seen firsthand the flaws in our system and the ways in which it disproportionately impacts communities of color. And here's the thing about experience, folks. It matters. She's taken on powerful interests, from big banks to for-profit prisons, and she's always stood up for what she believes in. Alright folks, get ready for a truth bomb that might just blow your mind. For far too long, women have been told to wait their turn, to be patient, to accept less than they deserve. But Kamala Harris is not about that life. She's not waiting for permission to lead, she's grabbing the reins and shattering glass ceilings left and right. And let's be real folks, representation matters. Seeing someone who looks like you in a position of power can inspire a generation. We're talking about concrete policies that make a real difference in the lives of women and families. Remember when she co-sponsored the Equal Pay Act? Yeah, that was a big deal. And when it comes to reproductive rights, Kamala Harris is a fierce defender of a woman's right to choose. Now let's talk about foreign policy because the world is a complicated place, folks. It's not all about who has the biggest military or the most Twitter followers. It's about diplomacy, strategy, and building relationships with allies and adversaries alike. And that's where Kamala Harris really shines. She's a seasoned diplomat who understands the nuances of international relations. She's traveled the world, met with foreign leaders, and knows how to negotiate from a position of strength. Remember when she visited Central America to address the root causes of migration? Yeah, that was a big deal. She calls out human rights abuses, stands up for democracy, and makes it clear that America will always be a champion for freedom and justice around the world. Alright folks, let's talk about the future, and no, I'm not talking about flying cars and robot butlers. I'm talking about investing in our children and giving them the tools they need to succeed. Kamala Harris understands that education is the key to unlocking opportunity. She believes that every child, regardless of their zip code or background, deserves access to a quality education. We're talking about making early childhood education a reality for all families, expanding access to affordable college, and tackling the student loan debt crisis that's crippling millions of Americans. As the daughter of immigrants who instilled in her the value of education, she knows firsthand the transformative power of a good education. Let's talk about representation, folks. And no, I'm not talking about those cheesy stock photos of people from different backgrounds awkwardly smiling at the camera. I'm talking about the power of seeing someone who looks like you, who shares your experiences, in a position of power. Kamala Harris's story is the story of America. The daughter of immigrants, a woman of color, a trailblazer who's breaking down barriers and creating a more inclusive and representative democracy. And let's be real, folks, her very existence in the halls of power is a rejection of the status quo. It's a sign that change is possible, that progress is within reach. It's about the policies she champions, the voices she amplifies, and the future she's fighting for. So there you have it, folks, 10 reasons why Kamala Harris is the leader America needs right now. She's experienced, compassionate, and unafraid to fight for what she believes in. She's a uniter, a bridge builder, and a champion for the people. Because the future of our country is at stake, and it's up to us to choose the leaders who will fight for us. So what do you think? Is Kamala Harris the future of America? Let us know in the comments below, and if you believe in the change she's fighting for, hit that subscribe button for more. Next, we're diving into the most shocking political promises of 2024. Stay tuned.